Hi there, Börje Ensgård here. Just wanted to show you my editing of Simi's image of the potatoes. I just imported the image into Lightroom, and I wanted you to show the burnt out highlights and the way you can in Lightroom see if you have burnout highlights or blacks with no structure in at all. If you are in the develop mode, you just press J button, and here in the histogram you see there these are white squares around the whites and the blacks of the image. And as you see, if I zoom in here, you have red dots where you have no information in the image. They are totally burned out places in the image as it is now. So if I press J again, the red dots disappear, and if you want to check the highlights, you press J and the red dots reappear. What can you do now? Well, highlights. Here you can drag this slider to try to remove the red dots so you get information in the lights. More or less like that. All the red dots are gone. But we have some editing to do in Lightroom still yet, but before we go into Photoshop. I think this is a little bit of a blue tint in this image, so I increase and drag the slider for white balance to about, I think, there. And another trick that you can see to get the right exposure or right contrasty image is that here in these sliders, whites and black, if you drag this one, you see that the reds reappear and the image are getting brighter. But if you press Alt key while you dragging this slider, you can see that now the image is totally black, and if you drag it to the right, you see these spots appear in the black image. So if you go just below where they're like there, and do the same with the blacks, and if you leave it like that and look at the image, turn off the J, these black that had this color, the blue one, there is no information there. It's just black. There's no structure at all. So if we once again press down the Alt key and drag this slider so they just disappear from the white like that. And I think the image is still a little bright. I just wanted to turn it down a little bit. Like that. And usually when I'm editing images, I take the clarity a bit up and also the vibrance of the image to get a little more colorful image like that. I think it's time to take this image into Lightroom, so I just Command E and open a copy in Photoshop. And this is how I edit images in Lightroom and Photoshop. There's millions of ways to do it. I don't say that my way is the right way. You can do it in many other ways. So we duplicate this background layer so it's on its own, and make it a little bigger, this image. And now we try to darken this layer a bit, and I'm going on to image adjustment layers and try to make this little darker, maybe like that. But this is too dark, so I want to make a layer mask on this layer, and I press Alt and click on the layer mask. That way I hide all the information of the adjusted image here under this layer mask, and when I paint with white on this mask, the image that I have here that I just made darker will appear. I'll show you. And I usually usually on this image I set the opacity to 30% on the brush. It might be too much, but we try. I make it 100%. And now I paint where I think the image is too bright on the potatoes and on these highlights. But you see here, still there is very little information in the highlights, so it's very hard to make something appear in them. I think I take here also. Like there. Take some more here. then we make that visible and see what these changes have done. That's before, and it's after, before, after. Take some more on this. Like that. Then we merge the layers together into one. Like that. I wanted to take this image into Viveza. It's a Nik Collection filter, just to show you what you can do there. Like that. And usually I add a little contrast, maybe just 5%. And we try to look at these highlights. If we zoom in, then we add a control point, more or less here. Take the brightness slider, turn it down a bit. Maybe we duplicate that by pressing Alt and move it. So we set one control point over here with the same setting as before with the brightness. We can uncheck the preview button and check it to see the changes. Well, it's quite good. We just press OK. And the great thing about Viveza and Nik Collection is when you use them from this program, they create a new layer where the adjustment of the filter is. So if now you can see here it's called Viveza 2, and then you can check without the adjustment and with the adjustment. And also if you have an adjustment that gone too crazy, you can dial down them by changing the opacity of these layers. So if you turn this down, you see now it's on 60%, so the feel of the adjustment of this filter is not as big as before. But I think we crank it up to 100 just because we can. And we will take the image back into Lightroom by closing the window and saving it. And now it's back with the changes. And this was the image before the changes was made, like that. And here it is with the changes. And now we still can go into these highlights and try to change them even more. Like that. And maybe make it a little bit more yellowish. And then turn on the contrast a bit more. Like that. Take a look at them into zoomed. I think the color is good. Green is good. I think it's pretty good now. I just show you a filter or a thing in Lightroom 5 that I like. That's radial gradient, and you got it here. You press that one, and then you take and draw more or less like that. You place it where you want the filter to not affect the image. So if I tilt it like that and make it a little bit bigger, and then here on exposure I will crank it down quite much now, just because I want you to see what it does. So if I do it like that, you see here inside this circle nothing happens, but outside the radial gradient is affecting the image. That was a bit too much, but take it like, well, maybe there, or make it 50, like that, and then you press there again and it pops out from that one, like that. I think I finished. I just export the image to the desktop, and we will see how this compares to the original image that Simi had on Google+. Okay, thanks for me. Bye bye.